They were sexually abused in the horrific period that was the 2007-2008 post-election violence. They say they lacked the mental, emotional, psychological capacity to report the attacks to the police because they were engulfed in fear, trauma, and aggravating the tragedy was that the law and order had collapsed at the time. 8 survivors of conflict-related sexual violence in the post-Paul era are now battling to get compensation, which the Court of Appeal held is not available to them by law, as the relief was limited to survivors who reported the attacks to the police. The survivors want the Supreme Court to overturn that decision as it is premised on what was really an impossibility for many. Frida Okachi with the details from the Supreme Court in this report voiced by Rose Wangoi.
As survivors of the 2007-08 post-election violence continue their fight for justice before the Supreme Court, Chief Justice Martha Koome has unveiled the Sexual Offences Bill 2026, describing it as a major step towards strengthening Kenya's response to sexual and gender-based violence. The proposed law seeks to bolster the 20-year-old Sexual Offences Act by addressing emerging crimes, including technology-facilitated sexual offences, strengthening the legal framework on femicide, and enhancing protection, support and care for survivors.
This bill will be submitted to the National Assembly for their processing. The bill demonstrates our commitment as a country to respond to evolving forms of sexual and gender-based violence, including technology.
But as the judiciary pushes for legal reforms, survivors of the post-election violence say justice for past atrocities remains unresolved. The petitioners argue that many victims never reported the attacks because they feared for their lives or had lost trust in security agencies, with some police officers allegedly implicated in the violence. Beyond financial compensation, the survivors are also seeking broader reparations. The state, through the Attorney General, maintains that the 2010 Constitution cannot be applied retrospectively to events that occurred during the 2007-08 post-election violence, adding that 318 reported cases of sexual violence were investigated. In its earlier decision, the Court of Appeal found that the state violated both domestic and international law by failing to effectively investigate and prosecute conflict-related sexual violence. The appellate judges ruled that reparations should go beyond financial compensation to include rehabilitation, restitution and guarantees of non-repetition. The Supreme Court has reserved its judgment and will communicate the date of its ruling.